Hello, everybody, and welcome to my self reflection on how my view of professional thinking has changed as a result of this course. I'm in the Dayhab conference room at Congress Dehabilitation, and it is freezing in here, so I stole the director's sweater from her office. I shall be returning it. So let's just delve right in. First off, I loved this course. I loved the information. I just found it just enjoyable and applicable to everyday life. Very eclectic in types of articles and videos and just interesting material. So, except for the budget thing. Skirt. So anyways, week one, we learned about different learning styles. And in the inventory, I was a visual learner, and I was not surprised by that. It was actually very striking how much of the study strategies I already did and used. And so what I put into my 12-month plan, which is applying some of those study strategies, like just organizing my workspace to avoid distractions, using notepads, post-its, to-do lists, other forms of reminders, using underlining, highlighting in different colors, symbols, flowcharts. I talked about utilizing graphic organizers, which was new for me. So I do plan on using some of those graphic organizers that we learned about, especially during different meetings, like life plan meetings, where we talk about an individual and talk about different aspects of their life, and just to discover trends and just be able to help them in the best way possible. So week 2 and 3, we talked about critical thinking, logical fallacies, learned about different types of arguments. These weren't my two favorite topics of weeks, but one thing that I did really glean from was just the necessity to really be able to think critically and to differentiate between good and bad arguments, especially with the way things are in the world right now and with media. And I definitely agree with the article that talked about how we should learn about critical thinking from an early age, and that should be incorporated into the educational system. So I didn't touch on too much about that within my 12-month plan and memo, but I did appreciate learning more about critical thinking and the different types of arguments. So week 4, I actually really liked. It was about creative thinking, innovative thinking, imagination, flow, brain writing. And so in my 12-month plan, I talked about practicing creative confidence. So one of the things that really stuck out to me was just thinking outside of the box to find solutions to problems. I tend to kind of get rigid in my thinking, like just kind of stick to what I know works. And it's just that this week really challenged me to just think outside of the box and just take the time to explore. And the concepts of curiosity and persistence and perseverance and patience were themes throughout the material, especially with Janet Eckelman's TED Talk, Taking Imagination Seriously, when she was creating those sculptures. Just the fact of patience and perseverance, it took her years to figure out one little thing, and she just kept going and going. And then the TED Talk, Adam Savage's TED Talk, How Simple Ideas Led to Scientific Discoveries. I learned about how curiosity is necessary to fuel problem solving. We have to just maintain that creative, curious mindset in order to solve problems. So this week really challenged me to do that. In my memo to the upper management, I talked about just creative confidence and educated them on what creative confidence is. And also I talked about brain writing and how it's a great tool for team building. And I just kind of outlined the steps for brain writing and explained how it's an opportunity for quiet people to be able to voice their ideas, since usually dominant people are the ones who get to have their ideas shared. So, and how better ideas are produced typically with brain writing. So in week 5, we talked about effective workplace communication and conflict resolution. I also really like this week, especially the concept of constructive conflict, which I talked about in both my 12-month plan and the memo to upper management. In Margaret Heffernan's TED Talk, Dare to Disagree, she said, if we aren't going to be afraid of conflict, we have to see it as thinking, and then we have to get really good at it. So conflict, like who really likes conflict, especially interpersonal conflict? Oh, I'd rather eat glass than like have an awkward conversation about a disagreement. However, in the material, it talked about how conflict can bridge gaps between people, and it can be constructive if done in the right way. In the article, The Role of Conflict in Communication, it states, embrace conflict as natural and productive. So this was kind of an idea that was new for me. Typically, I would shy away from conflict. I would address things if I had to, just kind of bite the bullet, grin and bear it. But I never really viewed it as something that was productive per se. The word conflict in and of itself has like a negative connotation. But one thing that stuck out to me too is that in order for conflict to be constructive, you have to apply competent communication, such as self-awareness and empathy and intercultural communication competencies. So going into conflict with these competencies is essential, as opposed to going in being defensive and argumentative. And I mentioned in my memo to upper management about constructive conflict and kind of educated them about that, and then also encourage them to embrace conflict as productive when done in a constructive manner. So yeah, embracing conflict, good times. And then weeks 6 and 7 were about effective scheduling and time management. In my 12-month plan, I kind of talked about practical applications like utilizing my desk calendar. Ever since the team leader position opportunity came around, I have found that large desk calendar is imperative, and I have highlighters that I highlight different things, have different categories. Meetings are in pink, and trainings are in one color, and personal stuff's in another color, and so that really helps. And also using the calendar through Outlook really helps because it has reminders. And then also using an Excel spreadsheet and creating to-do lists. So those practical things I talked about. And in the article, Effective Scheduling, Planning to Make the Best Use of Your Time, they have a 6-step process. And within those 6 steps, one thing that really stuck out to me was scheduling high priority / urgent tasks and vital housekeeping activities. Within like to-do lists and schedules, you could have all kinds of different tasks, and just really making sure that those high priority things get done first, and how that's essential. Also, the 2x2 matrix, while I kind of am still intimidated by looking at it, even though it makes sense and it makes sense to use it, I'm just like matrix. The concept of it actually has stuck with me, and just that same thing about scheduling, like just thinking, is this urgent? Is this urgent and important? Is this urgent but can wait? Like just the concept of the matrix has actually really has helped me, even though I haven't actually sat down and actually written it out yet, which I should probably just go ahead and do it and think outside the box. And then the video about Ben Franklin's schedule, I actually kind of oddly really liked that video. I just like how he just organized his little day and how he started his day with the intention of what good shall I do today, and then ended his day with what good have I done this day. And it kind of just starting his day and ending his day with those questions kind of kept the purpose of his day focused on like a bigger picture and greater purpose than just whatever menial tasks in between. So he really set his priorities in order that way. And I really appreciate how he made time for pleasure reading. And he made time for things that matter to him, like his family and friends, and leisure. And also, another thing that stuck out to me was how he set his space to neutral at the end of the day so that when he came in the next day, everything was nice and clear. I like that. So good job, Ben Franklin. We're still learning from you. And then lastly, in week 8, stress management. Really loved this week. In my 12-month plan, I talked about how I noticed out of the things that cause me stress, the deeper rooted issue wasn't necessarily those things, but just perfectionism and just like the need to control. And so things that really stuck out to me was adjusting my standards, as talked about in the stress management article, learning to be okay with good enough, and also accepting the things that I can't change. And the stress management article stated focusing on the things you can control, such as the way you choose to react to problems. So, and in my 12-month plan, I also talked about, and as well as in the memo, maintaining a really good, healthy work-life balance. And that was kind of actually a theme throughout the latter weeks in general. With the empty pickle jar video, we talked about like the golf balls of life and making time for those things like family and friends and your children, and not sweating the small stuff. So I talked about that and just encouraging in the memo to just make sure that, you know, we make the things priority in our life, like our family, our friends. And because if we don't take care of those things, then everything else is just going to like be not as productive. So I really appreciated that. And that is my reflection. And I thoroughly enjoyed this course and look forward to continue learning. Thank you. Bye.